All right, good morning, ELA. I'm going to go ahead and start up this PD and see if I can make an asynchronous video in case anyone's unable to hear any of these updates. Please know, kind of just sneaking these in because there's some teams that are available at the 8 o'clock hour, primarily the 6th grade teams who are also working under some of our resources, including StudySync. So I wanted to give them a window. I know that doesn't fit for most of us in the 7 through 12 realm, but there's also an opportunity from 3:30 to 4:30 when we hold these sessions to try to give you a chance to make it. And I will try to record them each time and put them in our Google Classroom. Okay, so the slides for today are also in our Google Classroom. I'm going to go ahead and share those slides and get things running here. Good morning, by the way, welcome. And let's see if I can just choose this one. I'm going to run through about all these tabs that you see up here at the top because I'm going to provide you kind of a spectrum of some of the possibilities that exist as we plot our course from here toward end of course and map testing. But the first thing I want to stress in person as much as could be before you see most of these slides is that we're not interrupting our current path of instruction as much as possible. So we need to find ways that it could belong there and really kind of be an adequate place to practice and review. Do nows, small groups, perhaps individualized things passed out to specific people who need more practice. A lot of those are going to be some options you're going to see presented today. But again, we want the everyday instruction and the rigor that you've achieved in your classroom to remain, what's pulling us and pushing us at the same time. So let's go on and look at some slides. Again, I'll have a chance to answer questions as we get there. So let me go ahead and get the slideshow going. I just attended a great session sponsored by DESE, and in these materials, I'll also show you how you can see those past videos. It's called an ELA hub, and it's from this year that they've started such a thing, but it has all of their past videos and all of their PowerPoints so that you could see that you are fully updated if you wanted to be, and I will do my best to help wind through any of the new things. And rest assured, from what I heard just a day or so ago, we really don't have a whole lot of new things as far as what will change, as far as what will be on the assessment. Even the questions and the writing prompts and the expectations are going to remain pretty much intact. But I also was excited to hear an announcement about some revisions that are taking place. So while we're thinking this morning, I want you to reflect. This is an activity we did together as a group of DESE educator attendees a couple days ago, and we really just thought first about our core beliefs in ELA, and this is a way to kind of frame our work today. So why don't I be quiet for about 30 seconds and just give you a chance to at least scribble this down as a future reflection chance or something that you're going to write about right now. Okay, I would go ahead and think about a couple of mine out loud for you and frame that. I think it's nice to share our backgrounds. And I remember the most favorite quote I ever saw when I was in the School of Education by Virginia Woolf, something to the effect of literature is common ground where we can trespass freely and find the way to ourselves. I always love the idea of reading a book. You get to have all of these amazing thoughts about yourself, and then you get to test them out when you talk about it with your friends and classmates and even the adults that you might wonder if they see things the same way you do. So to me, that's really the nature of what I hope we are producing in school, is a lot of chances to dialogue and think about the words we use while we're doing so. I also love the notion of how discussions get so much richer when people feel welcome to participate or are used to participating, that we do that a lot so that we don't just practice it every once in a while, because it is something that we grow more natural with the more that we are asked to do so. So working it into small groups and having it become part of your regular practice would be fantastic. Okay, so I'm hopeful to hear some of yours, and we would think about that in person. And if you wanted to go ahead and throw some of those in the chat right now, a couple words that might summarize your core beliefs, but I'm going to keep pushing. Okay, today we're going to look at some initiatives going forward. I have a few announcements, a couple that come from notes that I've made in the last couple of days when I've met with Desi. I'm going to preview a few resources for you and a couple ways that you could start to make some decisions on what to pull from and how to implement it into your daily classwork. And then we're going to ask you to think about setting a path where you're going to use some of those resources. And then at the end, we'll have a chance to share some of our plans. Okay, one of the big focus for all of us in all of our classes and all of this district have been kind of thinking about how proficiency scales belong in our daily work and how they lend themselves to a learning progression so that both teacher and student can see a pathway and some level of groundwork that needs to be accomplished before we hit mastery. Remember that those are embedded in right now the scope and sequence in ELA and secondary. But I will say that down the road, a cool announcement, they're in the unit maps that I am working to perfect for next year's release. And so you can expect to see those a little bit more embedded, and I'll be looking for some feedback from people about how that works. Okay, also your proficiency skills help you really think about what differentiation might be necessary before we ever even start the lesson. So you can help make these student-centered instructional decisions. You can even offer those scales to students and ask them to look for things they need to think about or don't understand, so that really our time is influential when we're really zooming in on specific needs. Okay, you can also have those conversations as you look through those scales in your PLCs, and I know many of you are doing so. Okay, on the right side, this internalization protocol is where teacher clarity really is the biggest variable in John Hattie's work that determines the success level of our students. And really what this comes down to is getting ready for instruction, and more than just knowing what's coming, really internalizing it and even having practiced it. Thinking about the flow, thinking about the parts that you're going to make sure you emphasize the most, and thinking about the parts the students are going to do independently, together, and then what the outcome really will look like and how it'll be part of the flow of your class. So that's a lot still to plan. Even when you do have a lot of the resource set before you, we really need you to see how it works. And that's by getting into those lesson plans, even reading the text, and being ready to experience that before your students so they can tell you're really prepared for today. Okay, so then you can even think about the misconceptions that are going to come up in our lesson plans that go with our resource. They do have some preparation to think about. This might be a misconception, or specific to ELs, this might be a word that is familiar to this background that we could lend ourselves to and help students feel stable about the new word. So really a good chance to think through those. Okay, here are some cool things. And again, I was part of this network. I was nominated. I was excited about that. I've been an educator in our district a long time. So I get to be one of 100 people who are part of what's called the Success Ready Network. And the link that's provided in these slides, that is also going to be in our Google Classroom, has that little button cohort there, so that you could go to the district not district website, the DESE website, and see regular updates of its practice. So we're in a team, and yesterday we met and we spoke on what it will really take to build competency-based learning across Missouri. And I will say in that discussion, one of the announcements that I'm pretty excited about is there's going to be some future discussion about assessment development and definitely changing in some of the reading passages. Maybe one of the things you noticed in looking at the test and the released items was the lack of culturally responsive material. And a true challenge is really seeing what that reading is going to require of our students. Unfortunately, the current 9th and 10th grade assessment, and even the 7th and 8th grade, really do need some work to think about the audience and who is reading the passages. So for now, we have to be ready to deal with that extreme challenge. But please know DESE is aware and has heard this from a number of parties about rethinking what some of the reading passages will be in future tests. For now, we are using what they had released in 1819. And I wanted you just to hear that from someone who feels very confident about it and has met with those groups enough to decide that. Okay, another bullet on here is kind of exciting, and it's something I'm very proud of. One of our tenets going forward in ELA and across every department is culturally responsive teaching and learning. I'm announcing the cool thing is that I wrote with an author in this book and will be included as One of the people that she interviewed, her name is Africa Afeni Mills, and the book is called Open Minds, Open Windows. I reached out to her in a past partnership when I worked with them in a conference presentation, and I'm just so excited that I'll be featured a tiny bit in this wonderful book that is really helping people think about what their path as educators can be, and what some of the goals might be when you're working in culturally responsive teaching and learning. Okay, another major focus for this coming year and years is to really zoom in on vocabulary instruction. Our unit maps going forward will have some level of preparation, both academic and content vocabulary that are part of each unit that I am making sure I pull out and bring forward so that it's easy to find and you can plan for it in the documents. And again, another major goal in every department is to really work on what it means to be prepared for a lesson, and not so much always building it all, but instead finding the parts and pieces there and how they're going to connect and flow so that you are doing what we call internalizing the lesson. Okay, so just overview as far as how much of the test we can expect to see. We are going to see the full test. And if they have given abbreviated versions during COVID, then there was a pretty clear announcement made that that would not be the case, and that it will not only be priority standards that we are looking at, but it will be all of the standards that are measured. And also the amount of time. If we're looking at that, our students are traditionally taking tests that are a little bit smaller, and we have done so in our interims because of the need to have more time for instruction, then we really need to think about how we're getting ready for this kind of stamina. And you can see the times that generally are provided where students don't have to take all that time, but given enough true energy placed at reading and writing and answering some of these questions, it almost should take that long. So please take a look at these and process some of those ideas about how what you're doing in class aligns with the level of testing that will be expected. Also on this page are some things I'm going to reference. This one pager that I'm just going to go ahead and open is a big guy, but it is updated, and it currently has most of the things that you would have to hunt and find a lot on DESE. On the top are most of the things related to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Really cool is here's this station rotation guide. Here's this ELA hub that I was talking about. So I snuck a couple links in there that you could go in there and sign up. There's also a place if you want to sign up down here where it says ELA updates from DESE. It's a listserv, and then you would get things sent directly to you. But please know, this is for you to look at a number of times, not just once. You might want to familiarize yourself with the blueprint and the way that the test is organized and how much of what particular task students are expected to perform. But you can also utilize some of these as practice. What's exciting this year is due to the amount of resources we've had because of Illuminate and StudySync, we haven't had to use all of the released item questions like we might have in past years to prepare for the test. So the students may not have seen some of these questions. And so when you go into the 9th grade practice form and key, it's directly the one from DESE that they put out for practice, and probably the clearest indicator of what they're going to see when they take the test. Do know the 9th graders are not taking the EOC this year. We can do that as an option. We have decided not to. I think we have a lot of testing. So do know that the 9th and 10th grade tests are very similar, but by giving it as a 9th grade teacher this year, you're really giving your students a chance to practice and prepare. So that's something you could work in. It's also a chance for you to copy maybe this document and cut it into pieces. If you've done that before, I could model it real quickly, and it's just a matter of downloading it, which I just clicked up there in the right corner. It would show up in my left over here, and I'm going to open it up, and you're going to see it's going to give me the entire document that's multiple pages. But what I like to show folks that maybe you don't know unless you're curriculum writers, and sometimes teachers have navigated this path, is that you can cut this document into pieces by doing a fake print. So if I wanted to go up here and do print, but instead of my destination at the board building, I would choose save as PDF. Then I can go in here and decide which of the pages I really want. And if I click custom, let's say I wanted to go get pages 12 through 13, I'm just going to guess that there's a passage or a question there. So then that's how I could chop that apart, save it. It'll go on my desktop. This little button will get out of the way. Well, I'm going to save it, but I would rename it and call it whatever the page it was. And then I could share that little piece of that bigger document in my Google Classroom. Okay, so that's possibly something that you might find potentially useful there in the moment. Take some of those one-pager documents apart and see if you can put them back together just piece by piece for your students. Okay, same opportunity for the 9th and 10th grade team. Do know that they're only taking the 10th grade test this year. And there are 2 sessions, and the bulk of one session, I think it's session 2, is writing, and the bulk of the other session are all the other questions. Again, that's outlined here with the practice prompt and the practice sources, and definitely it's in this one pager as you go back and look. Okay, there are some other ways you could find practice. And so again, I want to see if I could show you these real quickly, and then we're going to let you spend some of the last of this time looking at some of these options further, asking questions you might need to, and making a plan for what you're going to do. Okay, the first thing is crazy. I'm going to show you a program we used to have a long time ago. Please don't think that this would be something you have to do, but if you wanted to use Edcite, it's an idea. Okay, so I'm going to log in. I'm going to go in as a teacher. I'm going to go in as Google. It's going to remember me, and I'm really in the basic version. It will ask you to probably sign up. Then you can sign up for totally free, and you can still get to the things I'm going to show you, at least as potentially some more assessments to play with. What I'm kind of proud to show you is that before we stopped having this product, I went ahead and put them all public, all the tests I ever built that exist in this particular program. And so if you just go up top where it said assignments and search, I'm pretty sure this is how it worked, is I just typed in my last name. Yep. And everything I ever post, 124 of these little guys that are mini assessments that have one passage and 3 or so questions, are out there in the public domain. So you're welcome to find them and use them that way and kind of explore how to use this website. It's, again, free if your students use it this way. The only, these are all in the free domain. That's why you could still find them. And when you search for them, you'll locate them too. So you don't have to use this particular tool. I think StudySync has adequate materials also, and I'm going to show you those. Okay, but so that's something in Edcite. It's kind of neat because I went ahead and put those out there before we stopped being customers, which they still exist. Okay, Illuminate, we use that one in our district, and I've logged in as another user. Thank you, Catherine Fitzpatrick. I often borrow her login, and she is a 7th grade teacher at Central Middle School. And I know that I've already shared these assessments with her. And I want to show you how, if you are wanting to find them, you could see if they've been shared with you, and you could let me know that you want to see them. Okay, so if I went in her folder, and I've already started, and I went to shared with me, and if I typed at the top just 07_ELA and search, again, she's in the shared with me area. What happens is you'll see all the little tests that I ever built, and all of these, version 1 and version 2, are potentially little mini formatives that you could use. It has one reading passage and potentially 2 or 3 questions that are only about that one standard. So these could be for practice, and you can see there's a number of them. There's a version 1 and there's a version 2. I've done my best to create these and not have them also featured in the other interims. So you can probably find a lot of questions that are additional practice that the students have not seen before. Okay, if you do not see that when you go in and you want to tell me which specific grade level, what I do in the back is I just add you in what's called a permission group, and you will see all of those particular tests. So if you're interested and you're seeing this, please do write to me. I've added the majority of the people. I know which grade level, but I might have missed a person. And it's possible that you have more than one grade, and I haven't added all of those for you. Okay, so back to the show. StudySync, our district adopted resource, also has a number of ways to practice. Okay, so in this main screen, I'm going to go into library, and then I'm going to go into standards. This is the first thing I could show you. And then it'll even tell you, look, we're in Missouri Learning Standards. So you can use it to search directly instead of Common Core with the standards that we may need review for. And I'm just going to jump up to 8th and do RL1A. Pretty popular standard that comes up in a lot of places. When I search that, it tells me all of the places that it exists in addition to the place that you first taught it. And you may have done this when you did the first round with Telltale Heart, but it also tells you what's coming up down the road and other places that you could be prepared to see it again. Okay, so that's a huge possibility. The other thing is when you go out of here and I go into library and I go to standards, I think this one's skills. Let me look here. Skills. I blew it on that one, but it's library, skills, and then I'm going to click filter. We can choose by grade level. Let's do 8th again. And let's go to spotlight skills. Again, if you've heard of these things before, fantastic. If you have not, just kind of add it as one more possibility of a way we'll be able to use this resource to prepare students. So now you can see everything down here. 117 spotlight skills exist, and spotlight skills are all extra, additional material and additional assessments than the first time it was taught. So you could reteach and then reassess. So please know that was a good way for you to find. Go library, skills, come over here to filter and just choose the spotlight skills. 117 for just that grade level, right? If I were to go back to 7th grade, 116 in that grade level, and for every grade level, some potential material for you to use to practice. Okay, let's go back to the show. You can also clone tests in StudySync. And one of the other options in the assessment file here, to go into assessments and filter, you'll see there's actual tests that are called test prep. So if I clicked on that and I wanted to go to the 7th grade, it's a state test. It's not our particular state, but a lot of state tests have a lot of commonality. So if you went in here and you looked for this form, you could preview it and look at all the details. You could also come up here and do clone. Clone would allow you to go in and take it apart. And you can see all these particular standards are still in Missouri language that are in this state test that's not ours. So it could be really powerful for you to go in and just find the questions that you want and make a little miniature version of that state test and practice it. Again, we don't use these in any way that students would have seen them before. So they're actually probably brand new to their eyes and ears, which again, we want them to experience a lot so they get used to the productive challenge of going through a test when they've never seen it before. Okay, so a couple more slides and we'll turn it over to you and give you a task. I did a lot of this at the beginning because I just think people are going to want to hear if there's anything new or different from DESE and want to hear some of the ways to get ready. So district-wide, this is a slide I borrowed, and we want to make sure this is true of all the things that we're putting in place. We want you to make these valuable choices as well about what you're putting in place to get students ready. So do make sure that some of these look-fors are true. They are aligned with the MAP and EOC expectations, that there's multiple checkpoints, and so students can show maybe on a particular standard more than one path toward the success and more than one check. So student progress, you're checking on it regularly. Maybe you're using these released and practiced items. We just showed you those and you can see how many there are to pull from, and test taking strategies. So really practicing and working on our focus during these moments. Do nows could be a great chance to really get that level of kind of silence and kind of practice for that. It is an awkward chance to all of a sudden sit down and focus. But students might, have to have that chance more than once so that when we try it down the road, it's something we're familiar to, and we can kind of get ourselves in that test taking mode. Okay, so teacher feedback, again, giving these materials to students to use. One way doing it digitally might be self-scoring and some chances for you to utilize those features. Okay, so your task today would really be like it was during asynchronous, and I know asynchronous came and went fast. There was a lot there. I wanted you to really take a look at what other things you would dig into more as you really continue to study what needs to take place with your class and make these decisions. And then keep referring back to that document if you feel you have a need or something that you're wondering about. And reach out to me if you think that that need isn't reflected in the document, or you're not sure if it's there and you just want me to help point it out to you. Okay, so please do reflect on how what you saw today, like we talked about the text that are in the tests, may or may not reflect the interests of our student population and may seem like a text that we wouldn't want to read. That might be a challenge. It might be a real thing that we have to start to prepare for. You might have noticed that. That might be powerful for you to start plotting your course toward that challenge and getting your students aware that that might be realistic to what they experience. Okay, you might have found some of the links and really discovered something new. You might have found a plan that you started prior years because you've been doing this MAP testing and preparation all year instead of just all of a sudden. Please know that that is the message, is that all of a sudden doesn't work in any subject, but definitely in a reading-based subject, it's going to happen far more gradually, where we're going to see progress and encourage progress little by little instead of all at once. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that down and call it the video that goes with this particular task today. I will be putting this up on our Google Classroom. Please do reach out with any questions or any curiosities about what you want to know. They help us as we're all going forward, and it really is great when we have that dialogue. So thank you so much. Signing off for today. This has been your excited to be your coordinator, Chris Odom. Have a fantastic day.